Hello, my name is Kelly Hammond, and welcome to the Resiliency Coach podcast. This podcast showcases people who have faced difficult times and how they got through it. These experiences are real and sometimes raw. The people who share their stories are here to tell you that you're not alone in your struggle. They share the tools and resources they use in healing. If you're looking for solutions for getting through tough times, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. Today, I'm interviewing my friend, John Webster. And John Webster is a best-selling author, professional keynote speaker, and publishing speaker and marketing coach. John's mission is to help people worldwide overcome their fears, turn failure into success, and attain more time, money, freedom, health, love, and happiness by teaching them how to master their fate. So thank you so much, John, for being my guest today and for sharing your story with us. Could you please tell us your story?
So what I had gone through, living my life, normal life. I think everything's good and dandy. Got married, I had kids and business is good. But eventually it came to a tipping point. And after being married for 12 years, I found that I was in need to free myself from some extreme emotional and verbal abuse from my spouse. And what had happened was my attempt to leave that relationship turned into a catalyst that just, set off and sparked off many other severe situations. And I was able to escape my abuser, but basically in doing so, I had to leave behind most everything in my life. My ex-wife, she tried to have me arrested and put in prison by falsely, I guess the best words to do it is she set me up for this. And so she was making a false accusation about me, and there was a police investigation. But at that time, I had owned a retail store. And although that I was not present at the store when that happened, I was able to see the surveillance tapes afterwards. And it was literally the police SWAT right at my store, wearing all black and wearing black ski masks. They were armed with machine guns. My store employees were just completely mortified of what had happened. But they ransacked my entire store, confiscated all of the computers and electronic equipment, anything that they could find, and include it. So I had already had filed for divorce at that time. And so it also included in my store, my computer hard drive backups, which contained, about 20 years of journal entries and photos and, videos of vacations and trips with my family and children and research and projects that I did. Basically, everything that was my life was included on that, and they're gone. Now, I did eventually get those hard drives back after a couple of years, but I lost nearly everything that I owned, all my possessions that were in the house itself that was completely paid off, my vehicle, all of my tools, my machinery. I lost my business, my income, my profession. And at that point, there was some things I was able to retain, some of my clothes, some books, some personal items that I had since I was a child, but 98% of everything that I had was now gone. And so as if I was starting over life again from the beginning, as though the last 20 years of my life never happened. And this is a really hard thing to grasp when you come to that realization. The financial costs were astronomical. The cost of the attorney alone in the divorce process was over $100,000, which most of that I had to put on credit cards. So it was as a result, I ended up having to file for bankruptcy. Not only that, but after the divorce was final, about a year later, because of, I had mentioned my ex had set me up, the police were still doing their investigation into this, what would be a felony offense. So I still have this looming over me of potentially being arrested and going to prison at any time for what had happened, because they were still in their investigation. So these negative experiences led me down a path of extreme financial hardship. I had severe anxiety. I had really deep and lengthy depression. And I was to the point where most days I couldn't even get out of bed. And it was really debilitating to me, to the point that I was actually thinking about committing suicide, contemplating it. And so I guess that's my story, is that I was struggling to that point where I was at the point where my life was I was about to take my own life, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yes. At what point did you know you needed to leave that first relationship? What put you over the edge? What gave you the courage? Because it takes courage to leave relationships like that.
I don't know if there was really necessarily a point. I think that having the right kind of people in your life that can tell you like it is important. And at that time, I was involved with a networking company, and they could see things, obviously, from looking in from an outside perspective, because I'd bring my then wife to the meetings and things like that. They could see things that I couldn't see. And I think it was not so much the courage on my part, but the courage on their part to reach out to me and say, listen, this is what we see. You can do what you want, but this is what we see, looking at it as an outside perspective. And I think it was more of a courage on them coming to me and telling me, it's like, you are being abused. Living with the abusiveness, you really don't see it, because you become what is that called, Stockholm Syndrome, where you become so used to it that you it's part of, how do you escape that when you don't know that it's happening to you? And so for a little bit of a time, even though that they told me that, for a little bit of time, I went into denial. No, this isn't happening. No. And then finally, he had to sit down with me and say, look, this is where it is. This is what's happening. This is why that I'm saying this. And then I had a flash in my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that now. And it was really eye-opening to see that. And it's like, how could I even allow myself to be abused for so many years and not realize it? And it was a really difficult time in trying to make that decision, but I knew that I had to do that to get out of that relationship.
I'm glad you had those resources. I think it's important. I think what you said is that often people don't know that they're in the situation, and it's often somebody else looking in that has to tell the individual. And that's an important thing, that the Stockholm Syndrome, that's a really good thing to talk about. I think it's important that people know that spousal abuse doesn't just happen to women.
Right.
And that it's a real thing, that it can happen to men and women, and that the more we're aware of it and more willing to share the fact that it can happen to either man or woman, that the more open possibly we can be about that, and less shy and embarrassed about it, because it's something that's important to talk about.
Yes, definitely.
So thank you so much.
It's been a hard journey to bounce back from that. Literally, zapping like 20 years of your life. And it's like, what do you do? And literally I was at that point where I had such a severe depression, knowing that 20 years of my life was gone and that I'm going to have to start over on everything, start over on how to earn money, start over on, I mean, most things, obviously there's some things I didn't start over on. I still had my education, I still had my degree and things like that. But for most things in life, I'd have to start over.
Now I'm talking to you now, and it's been several years is my guess. So there
Yes.
must have been a turning point. What was the turning point?
So there was a turning point, and I don't know that there was any like specific resources that I turned to find strength. But I remember one day, I guess you could say it was a spiritual awakening. I remember, and like I said, I was to the point I couldn't even get out of bed. So I was sleeping like 17, 18 hours a day. And I remember rolling off my bed one time, and I was into the darkest corner of the room, literally to the moment where like, okay, this is it. I'm taking my life today. And then what was really interesting, that there was a thought that had entered my mind, and that everything that I had experienced was there in place so that I could be an instrument to help other people. And that my battle that I was going through was making me somebody else's hero. Realizing that is that if I knew that if I could just influence and impact just one person's life course, then my life itself has meaning. And that is what started me, leading me down to a path of learning how to control mindset. And it has eventually molded me into the person that I am today, because I have overcome. And my journey has given me the experience to be able to lead, mentor, and inspire others.
Wow. Now, you said this voice, this thought. Where do you think it came from?
I would want to say that most people believe in God. So I want to say that it believes in that voice came from God or a higher power. When you're at your darkest edge, you're either doing one of two things: either it's all over, or there's someone extending a hand of rescue. And I believe that that's what that was.
Awesome. And you said that you then learned or started on a journey of mindset. Tell me more about that.
So at this time, I had the following, about probably a couple of weeks after that, I found that there's this conference that was going on in Los Angeles. I was like, okay, well, why not? I've lost everything else. I don't have anything else to lose. So I decided to attend that conference there in Los Angeles. And this was a conference. It wasn't even on mindset. It was on marketing. But that was the spark, just being around people that are positive, that are really have everything going in your life. It rubs off. And as you're around those people, you eventually start becoming like them. And so I was around those people. I had that positive interactions. Was networking. Someone said, hey, contact this person here. He's a great mentor. I did. And it just one thing, just domino effect to another. And so that's where I am today, is because of all of those things. Life is a domino effect. And it's basically where you are today is a collection of the thoughts that you had yesterday, essentially. So that's pretty much what it is. It's where you want to go tomorrow is essentially based on your thoughts today. So if you want to change tomorrow's outcome, you've got to change the way that you are thinking today.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And I love that analogy of the domino set and it going down, because we've all seen dominoes all affect them. And I love that analogy. And you're right. Our thoughts today mold our tomorrows. And I love that the tools that you used or happened to find were that inspirational voice, that one that came from God or a higher power. Often people do use God or a higher power to find inspiration, to go through and get through difficulties. I know that I have, and it's a wonderful power to be able to draw upon. And I'm so glad that you're here to tell your story and that you were able to hear that voice and that inspiration. And the conference also, that's another tool that you were able to use with those people and to be able to have those influences that were also positive people, to be able to learn more of how you could move your life in the direction that you needed and wanted it to. And I love that, to be able to use those resources. Now, is there anything else in way of tools that you can think of that you may have used before we get to the next question?
I can't think of any other tools other than at that point there I started a lot of reading, listening to a lot of audiobooks. So it just set a spark of constantly trying to learn and find new things, new ideas, new ways of thinking about things.
That's awesome. Changing the way we think of things can change our future. I love that. Now, one of our last questions. If somebody is listening to this podcast right now, and they may be in the throngs of what you went through, that difficulty, that darkness that you were talking about, and if they were listening to this podcast, or if they were sitting next to you, what piece of advice would you give them?
One of the things that I tell myself that I think helps a lot of other people is to know that yesterday's failures qualify you for tomorrow's opportunities. So as you go, everything that you do is a qualification to the next step. So just because you might think of it as a failure now, it gives you that experience, it gives you that qualification that opens you up to opportunities in other methods of success.
I like that a lot. I like that the failures are leading you to the next step of success. I love that. Did you always, after that turning point, that one turning point, did you always see it as a detriment to start over again? Has it always been a detriment?
I kind of compare it to the loss of a loved one. So you're basically, you're losing that time in your life. Essentially, it is a death of sorts. And so you're still going through those different levels of grief on how to deal with that. And when I realized that, it's like this part of my life has died, I have to come to an acceptance of that. And it took a little bit of time, even after the experience that I had that said, okay, you know what, your life has meaning, you can influence somebody. Even after that, it still took me some time to come to an acceptance that this part of my life is dead, but now I can, become better and become reborn at that. And so actually for the past several years, I've been compiling and working and putting together a book, which is actually going to be, my next book is going to be released probably this coming July.
Will its title be?
Mastering Your Fate.
Good. And how can somebody get in contact with you if they'd like to speak with you?
You can find me on Facebook, Coach John Webster. That's JohnWebster. So
Excellent.
Coach John Webster.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us and giving people hope. Thank you, audience, for listening to John's story. And remember, there is a way through your difficulty. Please seek out resources and people who can and will help you. Now, if you're looking for alternative tools for handling difficult times or moving ahead in life, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. Hope you all have a blessed day and a wonderful life. Goodbye.